Hello, everyone. Today we'll be discussing the difference between statistical versus non-statistical questions. So, just kind of gonna start it right, thinking about what is the core idea here. The main core idea is that when we are discussing statistical questions, those are questions that require the data collection. Oftentimes, though, it will always yield multiple answers, right? So in this case, one example of a statistical question would be the average height of students in a class. In this case, the reason why it's a statistical question is because in this case, we would have to go ask every single student in the class what their height is. Most often than not, more people would have different heights, and at the end, we would have to take into account all of the heights and take the average in order for us to find the answer to that question. On the other hand, when we're talking about non-statistical question, we're talking about something that has one fixed answer, right? It's a single correct answer every single time. So in this case, if we were in a classroom, what are the number of students in this class? In this case, if you asked anybody in the class, they would count the number of students, and every single person will give you the same number. In this case, if they counted and see that there are 30 students, then that would be the answer for every single person after they count. So to kind of zoom in and think about some of the examples, right? In this case, we have some statistical example and some non-statistical examples. So again, at the core, we would want to think about the first three questions. In this case, what is the average height of students in our class? Again, we just kind of talked about that. That would vary, right? We would have to take into account all the different students in order for us to find the average. In this case, asking how many hours do students spend on homework. We would have a number, right, that would be more often than not different for every single student. And then what is the most common favorite lunch among students? Here you would also have to go gather data from different students, right, and get the responses. And based on that number of responses, you would land on what is the most common after all. On the other hand, we have non-statistical examples, right? That means that it would have only one answer in this case, right? No matter who you're asking. So in this case, how tall is the tallest students in our class? If you're asking that question, we would figure out who's the tallest, and then we would all say it's George or it's Maria, right? In that case, once we figure who it is, the one person that is the tallest. What is your math teacher's favorite sport? In this case, right, again, the answer will always be the same. If any student asks me, I will be able to answer that question, and we'll get one answer for the entire class. And then lastly, how many classrooms are in your school? Even though this has to do with numbers, at the end, we would all have to be able to count the number of classrooms, and at the end of the day, we would all land on the same exact number of classrooms because it's one answer, right? So in this case, this would also be another example of non-statistical question. So same thing here again, right? So how many pets does students in our class have, right? It would be statistical. We would have to take into account how many pets each person has. How many pets does Mia have specifically? It would be one number, so therefore it would be non-statistical. What is the average shoe size in 7th grade? We would have to take into account all the 7th graders as for their shoe size, and we would come about the average. And so therefore it's statistical. And then in this case, how many minutes are in an hour? In this case, again, that answer never changes. It would be 60 minutes in 1 hour. Every single person would answer the same. So therefore it is non-statistical.